everyone. Started. Usually before we start, we do a round of introductions. So we start with Join Me this time. Who's on the call?
Hi, Hi, it's Josh Brickman from Oracle. Thank you.
Good morning, Josh. Anyone else on the call? I saw someone just joining. We'll give them a second. And
I'm David Steenkamp. I'm a scholar practitioner working at L'Oréal's PMO.
Okay.
Jim Stewart, project management consultant, instructor.
I'm Ari Davidow, co-chair of the Roundtable and working at project.
John Gagnon, co-chair of the Roundtable also, and radiology informatics manager. Hello, I'm Wes Cathcart. I'm a project manager here at Leahy PMO.
Morning, Marianne Martin. I'm a PM in transition.
And who else joined us on the call? So that may be John. So Josh, John, and let me do the housekeeping.
And just go over the door, see if anybody's waiting to get let in.
Great, thanks, Wes. Oh, next month we're meeting April 26th. Bob Luton, who is a former co-chair of this roundtable, will lead a discussion on why don't we learn. Those who know Bob will know this is going to be a great discussion, and look forward to it. The April chapter meeting, Trending in Project Management. It'll be April 20th at Montreal Plaza. We have a professional development day coming up later this week. Thursday, Friday? Yeah. Those are really good events. Again, highly recommended. And for this morning, I'm almost done with the opening remarks, upcoming events. Yuval will present till about 8:20. Yuval, when you see me do this, you have 5 minutes, and then usual, and we'll try and wrap up and be done by 8:30. Especially important, like me, then have to try and get down to Needham by 9 for the next meeting. Quick reminder that we have now 11 roundtables. They're scattered around the area. All of the Metro West one is currently inactive. There's a PMO group that needs Woburn, which I like a lot. An Agile group that's just starting up in Boston. Healthcare in Boston. Boston, not just Metro Boston, but also the Boston noontime roundtables. 2 South Shore, 1 North Shore, Cambridge. Wherever you are, we have a roundtable for you. If you're trying to find out about roundtables from the PMI Mass Bay page, just go to Professional Development, Roundtables, the top entry. We're down here, MetroNorth, Burlington. You don't have to log in or anything. And actually, if I were to back up, I would have shown you there's a little pull down. You see the PMI logo. Do this quickly, I will, otherwise I won't. Next to the I'm not getting there. Next to the PMI logo is a little pull down if you want to sign up for mailings, and from that pull down, once you've registered for a meeting, you've been added to the mailing list, but otherwise you can add yourself to this mailing list or the mailing list for all the roundtables from that little pull down little open letter Okay, today Yuval Yeret, Senior Enterprise Agility Coach at Agile Sparks, an international lean Agile consulting company with offices in Boston, Israel, and India. He's leading several strategic long-term scaled lean Agile initiatives in large enterprises such as Siemens, HP, Amdocs, Informatica, Intel, CyberArk, among others. Yuval is a big believer in pragmatic best-of-breed solution design, taking the best from each approach. The recipient of the Brickell Award for Lean Kanban Community Excellence. He's also the author of Holy Land Kanban, based on his thinking and writing at yuvalyeret.com. Welcome.
Thank you. Interesting to hear your introduction that you write. So, Ari and John asked me to talk about scaling in this roundtable, hopefully connected to the real world. We have a short time here. I included an introduction to the Scaled Agile framework, but I would love not to give it. If you have all seen something talking about it and have some questions, I would love to skip quickly through the slides and get to questions. So, up to you. How many of you have seen some sort of introduction to Agile and the Scaled Agile framework? Scaled Agile framework specifically?
I'm here because I've heard of it, but I have no idea what it is.
Okay. So we'll have to go through some slides. What I can tell you is I'd love to hear those questions, and my next meeting is at 10 at Burlington, so I'm not in a rush to get back to Needham. So if you have a few questions afterwards, feel free to stay behind and ask them. But we'll start with an introduction. So the first question that I ask people when they come to talk about SAFe or whatever is, do you even need a scaled Agile approach? And first there's the question, do you even need Agile? But that's less of a question these days for most organizations. Most organizations are feeling the need to move faster, be more responsive, deal with uncertainty and complexity, and they figure out we need some sort of Agile. But for some of them, the solution can be just breaking out into small teams for small projects, and they don't have big programs that really need it. So the first question I ask is, how many people are working together on one big program where there are interdependencies between people? If it's up to 10, 20 people, you don't need SAFe. Just go and implement Scrum or Kanban or whatever. If it's more than that, then you might need some approach for scaling, and SAFe might be the right approach. But this is something the experts agree on. Scale only when you cannot effectively divide and conquer. Because scaling is tough. It's not a perfect solution. Ideally, get a small group of people into the room, more or less this amount of people, give them a problem, give them connection to the market, and let them run with it using some sort of Agile process. Now, when we look at this market for scaling, we do see that SAFe is beyond just the people that are doing Scrum and have Scrum meetings where representatives of the teams just meet every day or every week to discuss dependencies and what's going on and figure out how to proceed. Beyond that, which is still a lot very popular, SAFe is the other rising popular approach. We'll see it and then we'll understand why. Okay? Beyond that, there are some internally created methods, lean, some small percentages for some other approaches we will not cover. This is coming from a survey about the state of Agile that version 1, one of the tool vendors, releases every year. Very interesting if you're looking to understand, what's going on in the Agile world, what's not working, what are the challenges, what are the reasons, what are the results that people are getting. The most serious survey that is out there about Agile. So when we talk about trying to apply scaling in the real world, we see a couple of challenges. One of the main challenges is while Agile has clear practices and principles for the team level, for small teams, Scrum is great, Kanban is great, mixing the two of them provides even better solutions for many situations. But once you get to numbers like 30 people working on a program or project or product, or 100 people or 1,000 people, some of those things break. They don't scale. Need something different. So how do we deal with these amounts of people? How do we deal with the legacy that most organizations have? Agile assumes you have continuous integration, you're able to build everything along the way, you have full automation. There's an assumption of technical excellence as part of successful agility. If you don't do that, you end up with something we call the Agile theater. People being called Scrum Masters, project managers being called Scrum Masters, running sprints, but not really building quality software, not really delivering business agility to their organization. So a lot of people face that legacy and are not managing to really get the value of it. And the other main challenge that we see is that while it's relatively easy these days to have islands of Agile working in an organization, achieving real change, transformational change in an organization requires leadership support. And it's not just writing checks. Writing checks is not enough. We need them to be engaged. And a lot of the Agile approaches actually try to keep the managers out of the room. So if you're familiar with Scrum, they call managers chickens and they don't allow them into meetings, and that's not, and the same applies to PMOs, and that does not lead to transformational change. It can lead to small teams, but that's not the way to really change them. So this is where SAFE comes in. So SAFE basically tries to deal with those issues. It says that the management challenge is a big issue that we're facing. They didn't invent this statement. This is coming from Deming way far in the past. What he says is it's not enough that management commit themselves to quality and productivity. It's not enough to say we want to be Agile, we want to have quality, we're even writing the checks for it. They must know what it is they must do. They must understand those things. They must lead the change. Such a responsibility cannot be delegated. If you can't come, send no one. If you're not willing to spend the time to really figure out how to move your organization to a better state, don't hope that it will happen on its own. It's not something you can delegate to a steering committee or to one of the managers. You need to be in. That's a design principle for how SAFE is built. We'll see it along the way. So what do we expect leaders to do? We expect them to embrace the lean Agile mindset, to understand what lean is about, what Agile is about, what principles of flow are about. We expect them to implement lean Agile practices, but not just at the team level. A lot of what SAFE does is it has levels that are more applicable to those leaders. When we talk about program level, portfolio level, value stream level, those are levels that include work that is done at the level of leadership. We apply Agile practices, Kanban, flow practices at various levels to engage leaders, because we know that engaging a VP in the work of a team doing sprints is not going to work. We need some other way for them to really engage with Lean and Agile. And we expect them to lead the implementation and drive to get results. So I won't dive deep into what are the Lean Agile values. This is just a teaser. But as part of SAFE, we embrace the Agile Manifesto. We embrace Lean, talking about things like orienting around value. Everything tries to be oriented around value, whether it's the team structure, whether it's the Agile we lead trains structure, value streams, the portfolio. We try to structure everything around value. We talk about respect for people and culture, part of change management. We talk about achieving flow, effective flow. We talk about how to make innovation happen as part of those processes. And we talk about relentless improvement, not just continuous improvement, relentless improvement. A sense of panic and danger that we need to have always in order to continuously drive the organization to better results. And all of that relies on leadership. We also have a set of principles that go beyond Lean and Agile and Safe. These are based on work by Donald Ryerson, principles of flow, some other work in this space, lean product development, work in the space of how knowledge workers are motivated, and things like unlock the increasing motivation of knowledge workers, decentralizing decision making, principles that help us guide our decisions. What we want to do with SAFE is we teach leaders those principles. We show them how they're applied in the practices of SAFE, and we try to create a situation where more and more decision-making in the organization is taking these as a decision filter. When we decide how do we structure something, what should be the process, how should we promote people, how should we organize our troops, we try to take those things into account. And then, of course, we have this picture. We couldn't avoid it. And you cannot talk about SAFE without talking about the big picture. The big picture is basically what makes SAFE so popular to people that are looking for answers. SAFE is so popular in the market because a lot of people are now looking for Agile, but they're mainstream people. We're not talking about the innovative companies right now adopting Agile. Those are already doing Agile. We're not talking about Google, Netflix, or not even companies, smaller companies. The companies that are doing Agile now are people like Cisco, people like banks, people like financial institutions. All those organizations, they look for answers. They want a full solution. They want to see results. They want to see a full kit of training for the different levels, explanations, what different people do. They want answers to what do I as a PMO do in the world of Agile, and the answer, we'll figure it out, is not a good enough answer to those organizations. They want answers for what do the managers and leaders do in the world of Agile, and all of those answers are available as part of the big picture and all of the supporting materials behind it. Now, if we dive a bit deeper into what is here, beyond just a nice visual, the big picture basically has supporting materials, a knowledge-based article for each one of those icons. Each text, if you go to scaleagileparametric.com, you get this picture. You click on milestones and releases, you get an article about milestones and releases in SAFE. You click on Lean Agile Mindset, you get an article on that. So there are things that are along the side here, like Lean Agile leaders, communities of practice, the values, the mindset, the SAFE principles, how to implement SAFE. And then there are the levels. The levels of SAFE are basically the team, which is the building blocks for successful agility. Beyond the team, we have the program level, which is where SAFE really innovates. The innovation in SAFE starts in the program level, in how you take a team of teams and help them work together as one bigger program, the Agile release plan. Beyond that, typically in SAFE, we have the portfolio. The portfolio is where you control your the flow of investments and initiatives across a portfolio of programs in the organization, where you make sure that you don't start too many initiatives that you cannot really finish, that you make the right decisions. This is based on Kanban flow. And sometimes in really big organizations, there's actually the value stream level that comes in between the portfolio and the program, and helps you manage programs of, let's say, 400, 500, 1,000 people that still work on something building block, as we said, is the Agile team. This should be nothing new to people that are really doing Agile or have learned about Agile. We're talking about cross-functional, so people from the different silos, whether it is dev, test, whether it's server, client, all of the people that are needed in order to actually define, build, and test something that provides value. You can take a feature and develop it. Another name for this is a feature team. They're self-organizing. They don't have a manager. They get into a room and they figure out what they can deliver in a certain time period and how to deliver it. They're guided by a product owner that figures out the priorities. They apply basic scientific practice, plan, do, check, adjust to their ongoing process. They deliver value every 2 weeks. But here, not much innovation from SAFe. It's just a great description, collecting best practices from the world of Scrum, the world of Kanban, the world of extreme programming. And when you look at how SAFe training looks for Agile teams, it's one of the best trainings that we've seen out there for Agile teams that really brings all those practices with a lot of exercises in a high quality form that a lot of organizations just love to take that and use that when they train their teams. But again, just best practices, not a lot of innovation. What we do want to make sure is that when we implement Agile at the team level as part of SAFe, it's not just a process. It's not just running in sprints, not just pulling people, Scrum Masters, and product owners. It's also the technical excellence. It's also building quality in. A big part of that is we integrate frequently. If we don't integrate frequently, we're not taking advantage of the lean and Agile mindset of early integration, early feedback. We're not really understanding the economics. So we want to avoid physical branching. We want to all integrate on the same branch. There are things that we do even in the world of hardware. We don't just do process, okay? We apply test automation. We're not willing to live with manual regression testing on an ongoing basis. So they prescribe some best practices in the world of Agile. Successful Agile teams know that you need to do test automation. But if you just get a Scrum or Kanban training, you might hear that, but nobody forces you to do that. If you really want to do SAFe, you need to do test automation to have continuous integration. This is done by the teams that actually develop the code. So all of that provides a basic building block, the basic Lego pieces. But now, when we have a bigger program, we need to figure out how do we figure out dependencies? How do we work together? And this is the team of teams. We take 50 to 125, sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more practitioners, and we bring them into what we call the Agile release frame. They work together on a cadence, not just the iteration cadence, the classic 2-week iteration cadence of Agile, but also a longer cadence called the program increment that typically takes between 8 to 12 weeks, typically today. And the reason for that increment is that we cannot really, it would be nice to do all of the nice Agile practices of sprint planning across a group of 125 people every 2 weeks and adjust the plan accordingly. It would be nice to release the software every 2 weeks at that level. But it's not that practical. The coordination costs are high. So what we do is we say, you know what? We make some economic based compromises. We're pragmatic. Yes.
How many are each team? 7 to 9?
Yeah. Typical Agile teams.
Okay.
Yeah. So this would be around 10 to 12 teams, typically. So we say, you know what? It's important to us to bring all of those people to plan together and to release together and to demonstrate together. Some of those things we'll do every 2 weeks. We will have continuous integration across this group, but getting them together to do planning is important. We'll do that every program increment, so every 8 to 12 weeks, sometimes it's 6. This is the frequency that we'll have what we call the program increment planning. And at this level, we'll actually have an architect, we'll have product management, not just product ownership. This is the level where we'll talk about features that are really providing value to the customers. Stories at the team level are a great way to iterate on a daily basis, but they are typically not a level that is very interesting to business stakeholders. So at the program level, we talk about features, minimally marketable features that can actually bring value to the market. We maintain an architectural runway. So a lot of times you'll hear from Agile, from the extreme Agilists, you don't need to think about it, you ain't gonna need it, don't worry about architecture. They said, that's true. There is a lot of value in emerging design, emerging architecture, but you need to balance it. You don't wanna hit a dead end. So there's some balance between the things that you need to do to think about the future, to support future features. That's why we do enablers as part of the architectural runway. And you also need to assign some capacity to things that maintain the track. Things like reducing technical debt, spaghetti code, bad code, dirty code that is part of the system, working on automation, closing gaps. Doing these sort of things is something that is important, otherwise you won't get anywhere. So you need to pay attention to those things. This is an internal part of SAFe. If you're not doing it, you're losing your future velocity. The Agile release train tries to take this thinking that the Agile team is cross-functional and value-oriented even further. So ideally, we would have representatives of the different functions needed to deliver a feature on every team. But sometimes in complex environments, it's not possible. You do see a situation where you have to split it into smaller teams. But what we say is at least the Agile release train will have as many people as possible or as many teams as possible that really can deliver features. But if we cannot, then at least they will be on the same Agile release train. So they will work as a group, as a sub-organization, with all of the people that they really need in order to deliver a system. Ideally at the team level, but if not, at the Agile release train level. Again, a pragmatic compromise that you sometimes need to make. And all of this group plans together in what we call program increment planning. Program increment planning is a key practice. We also call it big room planning. Let me play a video for how this looks like. So for the people on the call, don't see it right now, but Ari's playing it. Okay. I don't think he has this video, but probably something else.
Somehow it's got a different video.
Yeah, it's a different video. But there are different videos that people take while doing this. The way API planning looks like, it's a combination of all group, big room discussions about vision and context and where we are. But most of it is the different teams breaking out, thinking about how their specific plan for the next 6 to 12 weeks are gonna look like for the next 5 iterations or so. And while they're doing it, they're discussing dependencies with the other teams that are there at the same time. So a lot of those lengthy planning weeks to figure out how things are gonna look like are compressed into 2 days, where we also do risk management. We ask the teams, do we have confidence that this is a good plan? We do management problem solving. We rework the plan based on things that we discover from those dependencies and reviews. We have the business stakeholders that are there throughout the 2 days and should go around the room, go see where things are, ask questions, weigh in on, are we doing valuable things that are connected to the vision that they presented at the beginning. Very powerful event.
Question.
Yes.
Actually, first comment, we do exactly the same thing in waterfall. We know we did in Agile too, but we'll do a 2-day session like that for waterfall and do that kind of planning. But who owns that?
Who owns that?
Yeah.
The person that facilitates that is the release train engineer.
Okay.
The release train engineer is an important function in SAFe, an important role in SAFe. It's like he or she is like the Scrum Master for the Agile release train. And it's typically actually a role that project managers, senior project managers, or PMOs play as part of SAFe transformation. But yes, it's an important and tough role to orchestrate something like that. And yes, some organizations learn to do those things in the waterfall era because of the same reasons, and that's actually why some people say this is not Agile. They see the PI planning and the planning for 12 weeks or a quarter. That's not Agile. So the trick here is not to plan the details. This is not a replacement for the sprint planning or iteration planning that will happen every iteration. But what we understand is it's like a kickoff to the quarter. We figure out high-level dependencies. We figure out things that we really need to think of up front in order to avoid hitting a dead end, to hit a wall. But we do leave a lot of options open. We assume, one of the principles of SAFe, the important principle is we assume variability. We assume uncertainty and complexity. We assume we'll learn things along the way. So we keep options open. We have some plans, but we make it very easy to respond to change and adjust that plan. But that's something that, it's important to really understand the principles behind it and how it works. Otherwise, if you just look at it as shallow as the surface level, you might think it's a waterfall. So it's typically something that happens in the same location, but if you're Cisco or Intel and you have or a lot of companies these days have a big office in Israel or a big office in Europe somewhere or in India or China, then a lot of times it's multiple rooms. You can see here that it's one room and there's video conferencing to another room. But the important thing is all of the stakeholders, all of the people on the teams are there in one of those locations participating. It's not managers making plans for their troops. Everybody participates. Management sets the mission and the context and the constraints, but it should be minimal constraints. The teams figure out what are the real requirements and designs to do those features that are important to product management. We get fast decisions from the stakeholders if they are there. And the teams create their plans and take responsibility for plans. As an Agile release train, we demonstrate the full system every 2 weeks. We integrate every day, ideally. We show the full system to stakeholders every 2 weeks. We learn every program increment. While teams retrospect every 2 weeks, at the Agile release train level, we get that same group of people just before they plan the next program increment, and we figure out, okay, what went well, what do we want to change, let's do some root cause analysis, let's figure out what are the larger things that are limiting our velocity, what do we want to do about it. If you have a couple of those Agile release trains in the organization, you need to start thinking about your portfolio. What is the portfolio of investments that we're making? What are the value streams that we're funding? What are the initiatives that we want to fund? What are the initiatives that we don't want to fund? When we fund something, we want to make sure that we have the right capacity to actually go and deal with it. This is where we apply things like weight and shortage job first, which is the economic prioritization mechanism that SAFE uses. We also use that in the program level. Again, we should have enablers at the portfolio level, bigger things that the organization needs to think about in order to make sure that the organization doesn't run into a wall at some point. We use strategic themes to communicate our strategy and make sure that the initiatives that we start, call them ethics in SAFE, are actually aligned with that. And we use a different funding model. We use lean agile budgeting. This means that we basically try to create stable agile release trains or stable value streams. We fund those value streams, not the projects that they work on, or not every feature that they work on. This way, we don't need to do too much micromanagement of the funding, but still maintain governance and alignment to our strategy. I'm really, teasing about this. This is something that we, dive more deeply into when we train leaders and PMOs on this. In all of those initiatives, and what do we fund and what do we don't fund, and what is currently in the oven and what is in the process of being released, is managed with the portfolio Kanban. And as I mentioned, if you have a really big system, you might have to add the value stream between the program level and the portfolio level. I won't go deeply into that. We're short on time. Now, the next question that might come up when you have project managers in the room or PMOs in the room is, what does it mean for me? What's in it for me? What does it mean for me? So there are a couple of points there. One difference in how SAFE deals with the PMO function is, first it says, let's be concrete about what changes. Let's look at the traditional approach and show PMOs how they need to change in order to really support a lean agile organization. So instead of centralized control, what we need to figure out is how do we decentralize decision making while keeping alignment to our vision. This is a different style of management. Instead of trying to load as many projects as possible to maximize utilization, we want to understand demand management. We want to make sure that we work at the right utilization, not necessarily at the maximum utilization. We want to make sure we have a continuous flow of value. Instead of detailed project plans, at the portfolio level, what we want is a lightweight, epic-only business case. We get into more details as we break things down and actually consume them for action. But it's not the detailed project plans that PMOs are used to. Instead of centralized annual planning, we try to decentralize and do a rolling wave planning, which is basically PI planning. We want to avoid the classic work breakdown structure and move to agile estimating and planning using story points, not requiring you to break things into the smaller pieces as part of estimating, making it possible to estimate more quickly and avoid over investments in things that are not yet going into the oven, into the factory itself. Instead of project-based funding, we talk about lean agile budgeting and self-managing agile release trains. And instead of waterfall style milestones like design complete, requirements complete, code complete. We want to move to objective, fact-based measures and milestones. One of them is the system demo. Working software is what we use to see whether we are really making progress on what we wanted. And when we have dashboards that say green, yellow, red in SAFe, it's harder to have a green when you don't have working software. In the classic waterfall world, it's very easy. People found a way to be green almost all the time, regardless of the reality. So we're very used to situations where it's green, 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 and then it's red. We want to avoid that. So we use objective milestones based on working systems. And the other thing SAFe says about the PMO is it's better to lead than to follow. And we actually see in a lot of cases that the PMO is our best friend in order to drive a real transformation. PMOs that understand that Agile is here to stay, and it's gonna affect the organization not just for small teams, but also for the way it thinks about bigger programs, about the portfolio. Those are the best friends of the Agile transformation, of the Agile coach. I can tell you of examples in Siemens, in Amdocs, where we worked with the PMOs, with the head of PMO, to basically drive the Agile transformation. And this means, going there, being part of the steering, learning first about SAFe, bringing SAFe into the organization. Whenever we do SAFe classes, a lot of the people in those SAFe classes are PMOs that are interested in how can they bring this into their organization. They move to the organization to objective milestones. They are the people that can do that. The move to lean Agile budgeting. They are the ones that learn how to do right practices of planning at scale, and they coach Agile release trains in how to do that. They help move from waterfall style contracts to Agile contracts. Help build better models for how to work with suppliers and customers. So having a PMO that is Agile friendly, understanding of Agile and pushing for Agile is key to success on an Agile transformation when the PMOs are strong in the organization. You cannot really succeed in an Agile transformation if you have a PMO organization and they're not really on board. That's what the SAFe people have understood. That's what we as Agile Sparks understood in a lot of our engagement. So what does lead the implementation mean? The assumption is people are already doing their best. The problems we have are with our processes, with our systems. And we need management to be involved to change that system. Management being the functional leaders, PTs, the PMO organization. Those are the people that need to be involved to change the system. You cannot do it without them. And that's why when we talk about how to implement SAFe, one of the two first steps are addressing that. The first step is to train or bring in Lean Agile change agents. There's the concept of the SAFe program consultant in SAFe. This is the expert that knows how to launch Agile release trains, knows how to train teams, that knows more deeply how to run those things. In every big Agile transformation, you need a couple of those, whether you bring them from outside or you go training or you bring the training in-house to train those people. The second step is to train all of the executives, the managers, and leaders. They need to be in a room for a couple of days to understand this in more depth. Half an hour is not enough to really understand how this is working, to understand how PI planning works. We've learned that just after these 2 days, do they really get it? Do they really make the switch? And if they don't have time to go through this, then you have a good indication that it's going to be very tough to transform this organization. So fail fast or learn fast is what we say, so that's good. And after we do this training, we identify an Agile release train, and we take the whole group, train that whole group together, can be up to 120 people in the room, but more typically it's like 60, 100 people in the room with one training, typically 2 trainers if it's a large group. And then just after that, they do their first PI planning, program increment planning, big room planning. This is a ceremonial thing, dramatic change from what they've done so far, so it sends the signal we're doing something different. Of course, then you need to coach this train towards success, and hopefully you'll get results like others that are doing SAFE are getting. You'll get happier, more motivated employees, faster time to market, higher quality measured by defect reduction to production, and more productivity, more features, more releases. All of those results are documented in Scaled Agile framework case studies. You can see different types of organizations are using SAFE and hear their stories. Some of those are videos, some of those are articles. And the way to gain this knowledge, you start with scaledagileFramework.com, obviously. And there's a lot that you can gain from that. But if you want to dive deeper, your main choices are to go take a Leading SAFE 4 class, which is a 2-day class. What we typically do in organizations for the leaders and executives is also available outside in the market. If you want to dive deeper and be a program consultant that can also run training in the organization and understand how to build value streams and design a SAFE implementation, you can go to an SPC class, a SAFE program consultant class, which is 4 days. It includes the Leading SAFE, and then takes it further into implementation details and how to teach this. That's about it. Very quick flyby of what SAFE is about and when to use it. Again, it's not perfect. 5 minutes, right? It's not perfect. There are implications to doing SAFE. There are ups and downs. But what we've seen is in a lot of organizations that have a lot of legacy, SAFE seems to be a good approach. Let's see. So, any questions you came in with or you have right now? Yes?
How would you describe the difference between SAFE Agile and release management methodology without referring to just name changes?
Release management methodology. So the things that are important in SAFE, I would go back to the SAFE Lean Agile principles, objective milestones. I mean, do you focus on working software every 2 weeks?
You do that in release management also.
You can do a lot of things with release management. The question is, do you make those your top priorities? When you say release management, I don't know if you're really doing working software every 2 weeks, if you're using self-organized cross-functional teams. If you have planning where everybody is involved and people pull the amount of work that they believe that they can achieve and not being pushed or decided by management. So you can do a lot of things, but SAFE says very clearly those are the things that you need in order to be successfully agile and deliver business agility. So there's less confusion about what you can do or cannot do and what you get from it. Yeah.
I'm just looking in context of federal government and projects they do. How is their adoption rate? And that's number one. And number two is the ongoing debate around replacing Obamacare with Trumpcare. You were to put all the House of Congress representatives in a room and ask them to use Agile and come up with a solution. How likely would that be?
Yes, that would have been interesting, but let's stay out of politics for everybody's sake. The government has adopted Agile, or is a lot of the government bodies are actually enforcing Agile for their contractors. A lot of government CIOs are adopting Agile and DevOps. We're friends with Mark Schwartz, who is running the U.S. CIS, Immigration Services, the big proponent of Agile and DevOps. Some of them are using SAFE. Some of them are using other approaches. there are some scaled Agile partners. I mean, the way it works with SAFE is there's a network of scaled Agile partners. Agile Sparks is one of them. There are other partners in other locations. We are not focused on the government space, not in the U.S., let's say. We're very focused on the government space in Israel. And I can tell you that, for example, the Israeli Air Force is adopting SAFE at the moment. They're one of the big organizations in Israel adopting SAFE. I cannot speak too much to the details of what's going on in the U.S. There are other partners that are more focused on Washington that are doing that. Yes?
On a 2-day PI session, so I've run, again, on the waterfall side, number of those, and we'll have specific deliverables, like WPS is for each function. We'll have a draft schedule, we'll have a risk register. What are the you mentioned a plan. Does each group have its own plan? Is there a master product backlog, each other own backlog? What do you see deliverables for?
So, first of all, yes, there is a program backlog for the entire group that's actually both input into the PI planning using the feature priorities, as well as output of which are the features that we're actually committing to do as an Agile release train. There are also what we call PI objectives, program increment objectives, for each team as well as for the entire group. Those objectives are basically a result of deeper simulation, dry run planning, that's the way I like to look at it, that the teams do for what they can feed into their iterations, into the PI, based on dependencies. So they come up and say, you know what, based on those features and those business priorities and our planning, these are the objectives we can commit to. These are some stretch objectives that we would aim for. We cannot be sure that we're actually going to deliver because of variability and uncertainty. And all of those are verified, validated by the business stakeholders as part of PI planning and roll up into the PI objectives for the entire Agile release train. Another deliverable is the program board, which is the closest you will get in SAFE to seeing something like a Gantt. It's the teams, what they are focused on, what are the dependencies between them for this program increment.
And that's owned by the person who's running this whole thing.
That's facilitated, run, and then taken offline by the person that is running the release train engineer. He's also running a lot of the discussions throughout those 2 days. So it's a very heavy schedule. There are a scrum of scrums within those 2 days, problem-solving workshops. So it's a nicely crafted 2 days. Even if you're not doing Agile, it's interesting to see the agenda for it. And if you go to scaledagilepFramework.com and click on PI planning, you'll get that agenda. I mean, everything is really available. Other questions? Cool.
In theory, out of time, so if there are additional questions, Yuval has offered to stay a little later and continue talking about this.
Sure.
Thank you.
Welcome.
A short introduction to a very complex subject, but I think, yeah, more than we knew walking in, even those of us who had